You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with Gonzaga absolutely annihilating USC. Did I think Gonzaga would win this game? The answer is yes. I think everyone outside of Southern California did, but I didn't expect it to be this much of a joke. I mean, this game was over from the word go. USC looked lost. They looked sloppy. Gonzaga did an excellent job forcing turnovers. They pushed the pace. It was an express lane to the rim. Everything that you wanted Gonzaga to do, they did. They dominated this whole game. Even Jalen Suggs, a guy who I was kind of critical of yesterday. I said he really hasn't shown up. He hasn't helped his draft stock a lot. The guy nearly had a triple-double. He had 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists. Corey Kispert had 18 points. Drew Timme dominated in the interior. 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. You know, it's kind of funny. Gonzaga was the overall 1 seed entering this tournament. A lot of people watch March Madness solely for the upsets. If their alma mater isn't playing, they will root for the lower seed. Gonzaga has that feeling of being the underdog. It's weird. They've had a perfect season. They've absolutely dominated this whole tournament. Their closest win was their 16-point victory over the Oklahoma Sooners. But it's weird. They still have that underdog feel to them. Coming out of the West Coast Conference, this is only Mark Few's second trip to the Final Four. Every year you say this is the year. This is the year that Gonzaga can win the whole thing. They never do. You know what? This is the best team that Mark Few has ever had. This team is excellent offensively. They're very sound defensively. I mean, it's funny, the updated odds from some of these sports books are basically giving the title to the Zags. I understand it. It's impossible to bet against this Gonzaga team. It's impossible to say that they're not the best team in this Final Four. I mean, I heard some people say that they had a really easy path to get through, to get to the Final Four. I'm not sure how true that is. Okay, Norfolk State isn't that good. But Gonzaga was a 1 seed. They're gonna go up against a bad opponent in the first round. They faced Oklahoma in the second round. A team that was ranked for a good portion of the season. Same thing with Creighton. And same thing with USC. They really haven't gone through cupcake schools. If there's any school you can say that about, it's Houston. For God's sake, Baylor is the first single-digit seed that the Cougars will face in this tournament. You know how many single-digit seeds the Bulldogs have faced in this tournament? 3. Okay, they're going up against UCLA in the Final Four. UCLA is a really good team. Did you watch them last night? They're coming off 2 big upsets. Alabama and Michigan. Gonzaga really hasn't had an easy road to get here. They've just made it look easy because they're so dominant. I mean, that game was so bad yesterday that in the second half I turned it off and watched the new Simpsons and Family Guy episodes. I still have them on my DVR from Sunday night. Joel Ayayi and Andrew Nemar no-showed. Doesn't matter. Gonzaga was able to compensate for it. I mean, that's impressive. Ayayi and Nemar are big parts of what the Zags do. It didn't matter that they no-showed. Was there ever a point in watching that game yesterday that you said, Gonzaga really needs Ayayi and Nemar to step up here, or else they're in trouble? No, there wasn't. I mean, half the time, USC couldn't even get set in their offense. That was the great thing that Gonzaga did yesterday. They didn't let USC get comfortable at all. From the jump, they were down the Trojans' throat. This was a really embarrassing performance for USC. You beat a good Drake team in the first round. You blew out Kansas in the second round. You destroyed Oregon in the Sweet 16. Where was that USC team? They looked lost yesterday. They looked utterly confused. If I was Andy Enfield, I'd have had a tough time falling asleep last night. I wouldn't have felt good about that loss. Because you really got embarrassed. I don't want to say it's okay to lose, but there are some losses that are more acceptable than others. That's a loss that you can't feel good about. Flying back to USC, you can't hold your heads high. Michigan can. They were in their game up until the bitter end. USC wasn't. That's not a loss that the Trojans can feel good about. But no discussion of the USC-Gonzaga game is complete without mentioning what happened to Bert Smith. He was supposed to be one of that game's referees. He refereed the game for a few minutes. He was standing on the baseline, and then he just collapsed. It was non-contact. He just fell backwards. He hit his head on the floor. I mean, it was scary. Watching that game, I saw him on the floor, and it's just like, oh my God. That's not good. I mean, you get flashbacks to John McSherry. John McSherry, if you don't know, was an MLB umpire, severely overweight. He was set to be the home plate umpire for a Cincinnati Reds game. Before the game could really get underway, McSherry died in front of everyone at the ballpark. Whenever you see something like that, someone collapsing with no apparent cause, if he got run into, okay, that happens, you bounce back from it, that's fine. But seeing someone just fall flat on their back with no one around him, that's tough. That specter was hanging over this game. You had Gene Steratore providing updates all throughout. Him and Bert Smith are very close. Thank God Smith is okay. He didn't even go to the hospital. The guy was tended to, and it was determined that he didn't need to go to the hospital. So, whatever it was just a fleeting thing. And, seriously, job well done by everyone there. It took literally no time for Smith to get the proper attention. Like, the second he hit the deck, you had an assistant coach screaming and pointing, hey, he just fell. One of the other referees immediately stopped playing, came running over. The trainers came running over. The stretcher came out very quickly. That was perfectly done. I'm telling you, that is a textbook example of how to handle something like that. You get out there as quickly as possible. Because in something like that, time is of the essence. You have no idea what it could be. He was tended to almost immediately, and seriously, job well done by everyone there. They handled it perfectly. I was at a Yankees game a long time ago. A guy sitting in the section to the left of me got hit flush with a foul ball right underneath the left eye. And it wasn't like he wasn't paying attention. He was tracking it. He was doing the right thing. He went up to catch it. He just misjudged it. And it hit him right underneath the left eye. And it hit him with such force that the ball bounced up into the row behind him. You'd expect the ball to die after it makes contact with someone? No. It bounced up. Now, no one had a better view of him than me. So I looked at him. For the first split second, it looked like he just had a really nasty shiner. Then it started bleeding. That was scary. Now, why am I bringing this up? It took probably about 5 minutes for this guy to get medical aid. This guy is bleeding. His family is using cocktail napkins to try to stop the bleeding. I think someone may have ran to get paper towels. It took the guy 5 minutes to get proper medical aid. Terrible job by the people at Yankee Stadium. And I know those people well. I'm not using any names on purpose. But they did a terrible job. I had half a mind to go down to guest services and say, this is what happened. This was the response. That can't happen. My father said to me, Jacob, that's not your place. You really don't know the guy. I disagree with him there. I do think you need to look out for your fellow man. At the end of the day, the guy could have bled out. Something crazy could have happened. And it took the guy 5 minutes to get proper medical aid. You do need to look out for your fellow man. If the people at Lucas Oil Stadium yesterday had waited 5 minutes to tend to Bert Smith, God only knows what could have happened. I mean, fortunately, it didn't seem that serious. When you saw him being let out on the stretcher, he was sitting up. He looked conscious. He looked with it. It's unfair to speculate on exactly what it could have been, but it seems like Bert Smith is okay. So, again, the moral of the story is a fantastic job by the medical professionals at Lucas Oil Stadium yesterday. From the trainers to the EMTs to the doctor. Job well done. If I was a member of Bert Smith's family, I'd send a hearty thank you. Moving on now to UCLA, Michigan. A lot of people didn't like this game. They thought it was boring. They couldn't get into it. I understand where they're coming from. There were only 100 total points. Both teams shot under 40% from the field, under 30% from beyond the arc. I get that, but I'll be honest with you, I like defensive struggles. And I'll tell you why. You know that points are going to be at a premium. So the next score could be the one that wins it. An offensive explosion, its last possession wins it. There's a little bit of randomness there. A defensive struggle, its last score wins it. So look, I'm probably in the minority, but I like defensive struggles. Now, one thing that we really haven't had in the Elite Eight, and I'll throw in the Sweet 16 also, is one guy putting his team on his back and leading them to victory. We had it in the round of 64 and the round of 32 with Buddy Boeheim. But since that second Syracuse win, we really haven't had that. That is until yesterday, because Johnny Juzang had one of the best games you'll ever see from a college player. He dominated that game about as much as one player can. The guy had 28 points. To put that in perspective, UCLA as a team had 51. Juzang scored more than half of the Bruins' points in an Elite Eight game against a great Wolverines team. It was an absolutely Herculean performance. You got flashbacks to guys like Lou Alcindor and Bill Walton. I'm not saying that Juzang is going to have the NBA career that those guys did. But in terms of dominating as a UCLA Bruin, Johnny Juzang is right up there with those guys. You know, it's funny, yesterday I said that no one did more to improve his draft stock than Buddy Boeheim did. I don't know. Juzang is up there. Like I said, I read a lot into what you do under the bright lights. Juzang has dominated. Without him, UCLA doesn't even beat Michigan State, let alone Michigan. He's been incredible in the big dance. I mean, that game yesterday really had all the makings of an iconic game. It's close all throughout. You've got the Herculean performance. No one's able to pull away. I understand that it didn't have the iconic moment. There was no great last-second shot. And when the two teams combine for just 100 points, how iconic can it be? But we're going to be talking about this Johnny Juzang performance for a while. He became the first player since Oscar Robertson in 1960 for the Cincinnati Bearcats to score at least half of his team's points in a regional final victory. But as much as this win can be credited to Juzang, you can also make the argument that the Wolverines just choked. They missed their last 8 shots. They went the final 5 minutes of this game without a made field goal. I mean, they had their chances at the end. Jaime Jaquez, I was calling him Jamie Jaquez yesterday. I feel like an idiot. I could have swore I heard someone calling him Jamie Jaquez. It's Jaime Jaquez. It's a Spanish pronunciation. I am sorry. I felt really bad about that. Like, I felt really dumb. But regardless, he took a 3-pointer very early. With like 27 seconds left. UCLA is up 1, 50-49. I understand that it was a wide open look in the corner. It was shooting practice. It's a shot he's made 100 times before. But you've got to have a better job of situational awareness. You've got to know to bleed the clock out. I don't care how great the look is. Unless it's a wide open dunk or a wide open layup, hold on to the ball. And even then, we've seen people miss dunks and miss layups. Just hold on to the ball. Instead, he gave Michigan some good chances. The Franz Wagner 3. Nope. Eli Brooks with the crazy layup. Again, situational awareness. You've got to know how much time is left, who's around you. He had time to correct himself and not attempt a circus shot. Of course it didn't go in. Then Juzang makes it a 2-point game. Mike Smith missed a 3. He got a pretty good look at it. I think it was Tiger Campbell that was on him. He got Campbell to backpedal just a little too much. Smith had a good look at it. He just bricked it. Franz Wagner, same thing. With half a second left. This was one of the best March Madness games we've had in a long time. It's a game that's gonna get replayed a lot. And now UCLA, a team that barely made it into the tournament, a first 4 team is in the Final Four. Shades of VCU a decade ago. Mick Cronin has done an absolutely outstanding job with this team. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. No, I'm not going to talk about the 17-game season. I actually did that before. Like, if you listen to this show, you learned that was a very strong likelihood before yesterday. I don't remember exactly when I talked about it, but I did talk about it. I mean, I love it. The more football, the better. It equals more money coming in. That means that the cap is going to go up. That means that the players are going to make more money. I understand the injury risk that comes with playing one more game. But at the end of the day, as a football fan, I love it. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. And I'll start with the Raiders signing Colton Miller to a 3-year extension worth $54,015,000. $42.6 million of that is guaranteed. With this deal, Miller is actually the first member of the 2018 draft class to get an extension. So you gotta think that guys like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Baker Mayfield aren't too far behind. And I like this move for the Raiders. They really dismantled their offensive line this offseason. They traded Trent Brown. They traded Gabe Jackson. They traded Rodney Hudson. I don't know why they were so willing to dismantle their offensive line. That will come back to bite them, but you know what? If they can draft some more guys like Colton Miller, they'll be okay. Miller has gotten better every year he's been in the NFL. His rookie year, 49.6 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. Then it went up to 65, and finally 72.9. His pass blocking grade has gone up from 52.7 to 68.4 to 81.3. He's not a good run blocker. He'll never be a good run blocker. That was the knock on him coming out of UCLA. That and the fact that he was pretty raw, which he was. He did not have a good rookie year by any metric. But the Raiders stuck with him, and they've turned him into a really good up-and-coming left tackle. $18 million a year is fair for him. It places him in the upper echelon of left tackles in this league. And that's where he deserves to be. Good move by the Raiders. Speaking of Gabe Jackson, the Seahawks didn't waste any time taking care of him. They signed him to a 3-year extension worth $22,580,000. For clarity's sake, I will say that he was already signed for this coming season and the season after. what the Seahawks did was they basically tore that deal up that the Raiders signed him to and negotiated a new deal with him that tacks on an extra year. And I like this move for the Seahawks. Look, you had to prove to Russell Wilson that you want to keep him upright. You want him to stay as healthy as possible. This guy was getting hit way too much. It was the source of his frustration. At the end of the day, trading for Gabe Jackson will alleviate some of the pressure that he was getting. Last year, he had a 63.7 overall grade. When you look at his pass blocking grade, it's 69.9. Now, is that the worst pass blocking grade of his career? The answer is yes, but that's still pretty good. Alright, if that's where Jackson hovers around for the rest of his career, I'll take it. This contract is very fair for him. It doesn't put him in the Brandon Brooks, Zach Martin range. It actually lessens his AAV, which is pretty impressive. Good job by the Seahawks. This makes a ton of sense. Russell Wilson has to be very happy right now. Moving on now to the Bengals, bringing back Mike Daniels on a 1-year deal worth up to $2.5 million. And I don't mind this move. Daniels has had success in this league before. There was a point in time where he was one of the better defensive tackles in the game. But last year, he really wasn't that good for the Bengals. He had just a 52.2 overall grade. He didn't have a single sack. The first year in his career that he didn't record a sack. It seems like he's nearing the end of the line. But I don't mind the Bengals keeping him around if it's as a backup. Realize, they have DJ Reader coming back, and they just signed Larry Ogunjobi. So it seems like Daniels is destined for the bench. That's where he should be. You want to bring in a veteran defensive tackle to be your backup? I have no problem with that. $2.5 million is very fair for him. Solid move by the Bengals. I'll close this show out with the Clippers signing DeMarcus Cousins to a 10-day contract. So the Clippers saw the Nets, Lakers, and Spurs at big men, and they decided to get in on the fun. The Clippers could have stood to add a third center behind Serge Ibaka and Ivica Zubac. Ibaka's having a good year for the Clippers, as is Zubac. I'm not sure how much of an impact Boogie is really going to have with the Clippers. He's going to struggle for playing time, let me tell you. I understand that the Clippers have some of his buddies on the team. Rajon Rondo and Patrick Patterson. But there had to be a better opening out there for Boogie in terms of getting minutes. Unless the plan is to move a guy like Ibaka to power forward, I just don't see where Cousins is getting his minutes. I mean, I like Boogie. I understand that he didn't have a good year with the Rockets. Looked like a shell of his former self. Yeah, his injuries are getting to him. He's a big man with foot problems. That never works. But I do think Boogie can help a team down the stretch. As a backup center, I think he'd be fine. As a third-string center, he's fantastic. A great job by the Clippers in convincing him to sign with them. But if I was Boogie, I'd be concerned about my PT. New York Yankees preview comes your way tonight. MLB preview comes your way tomorrow. That will serve as the regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that my arm has felt so bad since I retired from pitching that I can't even throw a tantrum.